Okay, so we are going to start chapter 3 today. Okay, announcements. It's not working. Give me 1 second. All right. Okay, so for you guys, try to speak a little bit louder when you share your thoughts in class, because this mic is way too far from you guys, and the online students, they cannot hear. So try to speak louder, and it's helpful for me too. I'm old, so if you don't speak loud, you might not hear. Also, to get full participation scores, you need to attend at least 85% of the class. Well, hopefully you can attend 100%, but if you make 85%, you get full participation scores. Also, make sure you remember to mark your attendance on Google Doc. Just remember to do it. Okay, and then your review sheet for exam 1 will be posted this week. Yes?
I sent you an email about one
Quiz, yes. How many of you got the quiz question wrong about the teratogens? Okay, some of you. I will change that because teratogens, I was supposed to cover that last class, but since we have computer issues, we wasted some time. We didn't get to cover that, but we're going to talk about that today, and I will give you the points back. If you got it wrong, I don't think all of you need to send me an email. Just maybe you can send me an email after class.
There was also a question on drinking wine during pregnancy.
Okay.
That was a strategy.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'll
Just
let
post,
you know.
yeah, just tell me which questions they are. Okay. All right. Also, I need to correct my mistakes. Remember this question I had confusions about whether it was observational correlation. So I went back, I thought about it. If I have to choose, I'll choose correlation. Because, so if we look at here, this researcher kind of have a good idea what they are looking for. It's caffeine and stress. It's not like very exploratory. Does that make sense? If it's very exploratory, it might be they're just observing and looking at the people who are stressed and then see what's affecting them instead of looking at straight at caffeine and stress. Does that make sense? Okay. However, I will make questions more clear on the exam, so don't worry about that, but I just want to correct my mistake here. Okay, so today we are going to talk about nature and nurture. We are going to talk about human development, and we are talking about prenatal development and infant and child. So if you remember in the subdiscipline of psychology, we talked about developmental psychology is the study of how thoughts and behavior change and remain stable across the lifespan. So what we are going to talk about today, it's more focused on developmental psychology. So we have 3 types of changes during development. First, we have biological changes. Those are the changes in an individual's physical features. And then we have cognitive changes. Those are the changes in thought, intelligence, and language. Then lastly, we have social-emotional changes. Those are the changes in relationship with other people, emotions, and personality. Okay. Do you have any questions on these 3 types of changes? We good? Okay, so can someone give me a quick example of biological changes? Yes?
Puberty.
Puberty? So what about it? Because it's a big change. It includes a lot of stuff. What specifically about puberty?
Growing hair and stuff.
Growing hairs? Yeah, very good. So those are physical features. What about cognitive changes? Should be pretty simple. Yes?
Learning how to speak and just like read.
Very good. Very good. So your thoughts and your intelligence changes after this class. So that's a cognitive change too. It happens all the time. Okay, what about social emotional changes? Yes.
Your relationship with your parents, like being dependent on them as a kid and then growing up,
Very good.
not having that.
Very good. Very good. All right. Okay, so nature or nurture? So nature, they suggest that studies show that we inherit certain genes that are related to certain personality traits. So some people think that nature is more important. For nurture, they think that we often see identical twins grow up to have very different personalities and preferences. So some people will suggest that nurture is more important in human development. So what do you think? Which one is more important in human development, nature or nurture? Do you want a minute to talk about it, or you can just volunteer and share your thoughts? Which one would you prefer? Okay, we'll just go ahead.
I
Yeah.
mean, I would prefer the idea of nurture just because it seems better, but the chapter reading made it pretty clear that it's a mix of both.
Okay.
So,
All right. So you think both are important? Okay. What about other people? Yes.
Prior to reading the chapter, I would have said nurture,
Uh-huh.
but as like you said, like the chapter was very clear about it's both, no matter what you're talking about.
Okay. Okay. We'll talk about that later. So before reading the book, the textbook, who thinks that nurture is more important? Okay, a lot of you. Do you remember why you thought that? Or you just think, yeah, that's, yeah.
I mean, I guess part of it is just in a like good mindset way because I like to think of having a growth mindset and
Uh-huh.
you kind of have to believe in nurture and being able to change how you are in order to do
Gotcha.
different things sometimes because otherwise you just think, oh, I was born this way, so I
Uh-huh.
can improve.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so before learning psychology, I thought nurture would be more important too because I feel like nature is just that gene, and before you're born, it's like 9 months. But after that, you have a whole lifespan to learn and to change. And so that's why I thought nurture was more important. Okay, so let's do a practice question. James' parents are from the US. This is James. But they moved to China when James was little. When growing up, James started noticing that he's more outgoing and expressive than most of his Chinese friends, even though they spend most time in the same environment, which means they went to the same boarding school, they had the same teachers, they had very similar experiences. So given this information, which statement would James agree with? Anyone else?
Chat, someone's in the chat. seems-
Chats? Okay. Let's take a look. So online student, one of them, Nicole says A, James' personality development is mainly influenced by nurture. 2 says B, mainly influenced by nurture. What do you guys think? A? A? Anyone thinks it's B? Nurture? No one? Okay, very good. It changed. Okay, so it should be A. So they had similar experiences, right? So that's nurture. That's the same. What's different is James' genes and his Chinese friend's genes. Does that make sense? So we will say if they are different, and then the genes different, that will be the cause. Yes?
Wouldn't we also have to consider though that his parents are probably raising him different since they're from the US?
Did I mention that here?
Well, it says his parents are from the US.
Yeah, but did I mention how they are raising them? Or how they are raising James?
No. That's
Yeah. So again, what I mentioned last time is don't assume information, right? So just use what I give you and try to make the best decision among the options that I give you. All right, very good, very good. Next, Ken thinks it's very important to take his daughter to museums, parks, and theater events when she's growing up. They also volunteer at a local animal shelter. Given this information, which statement will Ken agree with? A, B, or C? Oh, you can just say it. B? Okay, all right, pretty straightforward. Yes, B. So he will think that. Do I need to explain this? No? Okay. All right. So you're right. They are both important for human development. However, they might play a more important role than the other in different stages in life, which we are going to talk about that throughout the chapter. Okay, any questions so far? So that was nature and nurture. You good? Okay, now we're going to talk about human development. So prenatal development. First, we have the germinal stage. That's from 0 to 2 weeks. And that's when the zygote is formed. Zygote is a single cell that forms when sperm and ovum merge. Okay. And they divide rapidly into many cells in 2 weeks. Also, about half of them do not successfully implant. This stage ends whenever the zygote implant. Okay. Do I need to explain what this is? You should, I think you know this from biology, right? Or anatomy? Or do I need to explain this a little bit more? Yes or no? We good? Okay. All right. Next, we have the embryonic stage. That's from 2 to 8 weeks. And this is when the embryo is formed. During this stage, the organs and body parts are created. And it begins with implantation. So whenever it implants to the wall, it begins. And this is when the critical periods exist. Those are critical stages when certain environmental factors can strongly influence the development. Okay. And we are going to talk about this in more details. So remember, critical periods is in the embryonic stage. And it's between 2 to 8 weeks when a woman is pregnant. Okay. Next, we have the fetal stage. That's from 8 weeks to birth. So fetus, they start to move and their bone cells are formed during this stage. The organs start to grow and function. So before this, during the embryonic stage, the organs, they are created, but they're not functional yet. Here, the organs start to grow and function. Okay, and then next we have the 3 to 5 months. That's when the neuromigration starts to happen. So neuromigration is when your neurons move from one part of the brain to their more permanent body parts. And then 4 to 6 months is when you start to notice baby's movement in the belly. And after 6 months, that's when the baby can survive birth. Okay. And they start to respond to sounds around 6 months. Then by 7 months, all of the baby's organs are functional. And then 8 months is when they start to sense light, touch, and sound. And this is when they can remember what's outside and they can start to learn. That's why sometimes we hear people play those prenatal music. During this stage, it can actually influence the baby's learning. Okay, so in the last 3 months before birth, that's when the baby's cells start to grow very rapidly. Any questions so far? Are we good? Okay, so critical periods. So we know that both nature and nurture are crucial in the utero, but we need to be extra cautious during the embryonic stage, which is during the critical periods. Because during this time, their organs and their body parts are created and start to form. So teratogens, they are any substance that can cause birth defects. Those are some examples. Teratogens can be virus, any kind of chemicals, or something else. And we're going to talk about that one by one. So in the critical periods, the teratogens follow the dose-response principle. Anyone knows what this is? Dose-response principle? No? Okay. So this is suggesting that the longer and the stronger the exposure to teratogens, the more severe the defects are. So if you maybe drink a little bit or smoke a little bit, the defects might not be as severe. But if you drink more or smoke more during pregnancy, the defect will be more severe, even causing death. So that's the dose-response principle. We good? All right. So during this critical period, the changes can be very crucial, like the baby's body size, their intelligence, so they're more permanent. But after this changes, it's less crucial, but still very important, like health, they're still pretty important. It just critical periods are extra critical. All right. Okay, so we are going to talk about the types of teratogens and their effects. First, cocaine. So if a baby is exposed to cocaine during the critical periods, the baby is very likely to be short, underweight. They might they are likely to have breath issues. They might have learning difficulties growing up. They might have seizures, delayed physical and motor development. So don't do cocaine while pregnancy. Well, don't do cocaine at all. It's not good for you. Okay. Next, we have tobacco or marijuana. I know a lot of people smoke tobacco or weed. They're both unhealthy. Doesn't matter what. Well, unless you have some medical problems that you need weed. Other than that, it's just not good for you. So this can cause miscarriage. The babies might be short, underweight. They are likely to have intellectual and learning disabilities. And the chances to develop schizophrenia goes way up, not just double the chances. It's like, I don't know, multiple the changes. So if you have family history of schizophrenia, don't smoke marijuana or tobacco at all. It's not good for your offsprings. Okay, questions on tobacco, marijuana, or cocaine? Any questions? No questions? All right. Okay. So liquor, is that okay? I see someone says no. What about you guys? For those who's not responding, think yes. A little bit liquor during pregnancy? No? There's no response? Okay. What about wine? Yes?
It sounds stupid, but I heard past like a certain trimester, you can have like 1 glass of wine for like a period.
Yeah.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
you can do it, but like I've heard
Yeah.
past like the developmental stage where they're pretty much developed, you can have like 1 glass of wine every few days, once a week or what, something like that.
Do you remember where you heard that from?
I'm not gonna say my aunt does it or did it. So she was like, it was funny because it was like her second and third kid, because like, you know, the
Oh,
first
okay.
were very strict about it, and she's like,
Uh-huh.
they both came out fine, so I think it's okay, or whatever.
So do you remember? Yeah,
I'm not
that's
saying, like,
sort
I
of fine.
support it, but like,
So do you remember we talked about critical thinking
Mhm.
and be careful the source of the information? And that's anecdote, right?
well, I'm expecting you to explain why. It's
Oh, yeah.
Be like, so I can go to my aunt and be like, you don't know.
Yeah. Yes, I will explain that to you so that you can help more people. Well, they might look normal, they might look fine, but they could be, I don't know, more intelligent if they were not exposed to alcohol, or they might be even more healthier, right? So, but in short, wine is not okay. So during pregnancy, it's just not good for you or the baby. Okay. I know it sounds like there's a lot of limits for women, which sucks, but it's just biology. So I'm going to show you this video very quickly. He explains this very, very clear and very well, and we are going to talk about if you have any questions.
Hi, I'm Tom Donaldson, NoFest Director. Recently, ABC News raised the issue of alcohol and pregnancy during their popular program, What Would You Do? Hidden cameras captured people's responses to a visibly pregnant woman drinking alcohol at a bar.
Good thing our actor isn't really pregnant, and she's drinking juice, not real alcohol.
When you get a chance, I'll take a tequila. The baby is loving them. But shouldn't be drinking. Why? Because you're pregnant.
You're pregnant. You just had a tequila. You gotta take over that baby. For your own good, don't care. Don't do it. For the baby.
These responses are encouraging because they demonstrate recognition by the public that alcohol during pregnancy can pose serious problems.
Well, cheers.
When our pregnant actor drinks wine, most people don't even raise an eyebrow.
Have some.
So the online students can't hear. They can't hear anything.
Something so they can hear it, and it's too fuzzy.
Yeah.
I can try to find a link and send it to them instead.
Yeah. So online students, if you can't hear, I don't know what I can do, because usually there's this mic is linked to the laptop that the school provided, but I don't think my laptop can hook up to this mic. So I will post this PowerPoints after class. If you're interested, you can watch it.
Somebody just said that when you share the screen on the bottom left, there's a button to share audio.
share audio. It should be here. So on Zoom, those are the only options I have. Same as system, maybe.
Share screen at the bottom left as a box.
I think if you go into new share and like reshare the screen, there's a box that you can hit. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I think it should be here. That's the audio. Maybe same system. All right, try this. If it doesn't work,
Yeah, they're just saying you have to unshare. and then-
Why? Hopefully.
unshare.
Unshare and then share again.
Okay.
Yeah, share sound at the bottom.
Oh, awesome. Thanks. Let's see. Oh, come on. What?
Hi, I'm Tom.
You pregnant. You just had a tequila. You gotta think about the baby. For your own good, don't do it. Don't do it. For the baby.
These responses are encouraging because they demonstrate recognition by the public that alcohol during pregnancy can pose serious problems.
Well, cheers.
When our pregnant actor drinks wine, most people don't even raise an eyebrow.
Have some wine. Hopefully it gets the baby going. Seems to like it.
A little glass of wine here and there might not get you where you want to be, but it's healthy. I don't want to preach, but this is just not even socially acceptable for a pregnant woman to drink hard liquor, you know? A glass of wine's okay.
To be clear, a little glass of wine occasionally is not healthy during pregnancy.
The Surgeon General warns there is no known safe amount of alcohol to drink while pregnant.
In fact, the Surgeon General's advisory is the most definitive and scientifically grounded statement on the subject, and NOFAS agrees with it.
There are some doctors who say an occasional glass of wine after the first trimester may be okay.
First of all, during pregnancy, there is no safe type of alcohol, even wine. Second, there is no amount that is without risk, even the occasional glass of wine, occasional being highly subjective. Third, human development occurs throughout the 9 months of pregnancy. So there is no stage in which the baby is completely safe, even after the first trimester. Bottom line is there is no safe amount, time, or type of alcohol during pregnancy.
Baby really starts to kick.
I don't know what you say to that. I'm like biting my lip to not say something to her. Like, what are you doing?
If you find yourself in this situation, now you know the facts. Any amount of alcohol, beer, wine, hard liquor, even that little occasional glass of wine, all pose a risk during pregnancy. So speak up and get involved.
Okay, so the reason that we don't know definitively, you guys know why? Yes?
Is there like an ethical?
Because we can't do experiment on it. We can't just have them drink like a glass of wine and then control everything else throughout the pregnancy and see. All we could say is that based on correlational studies, we found that babies are less healthy if they are exposed to any kinds of alcohol. We cannot say that's the cause, but there's a correlation. Right? What else? Okay, so think about this. We can't drink legally until we're 21, right? Because it might influence brain functions, influence brain development. But why can a baby be exposed to alcohol when they're in the womb? It doesn't make sense, right? Right? Okay, so yeah. So think about that way. It's just like, it's not good. It's hard for women. So for men, if you're the husband, don't just drink wine or hard liquor while your wives are pregnant. And try to, I don't know, be sympathized, empathized, and don't be a jerk. Don't go out and party while your wife is at home and can't do anything. You should share the experience. Right? You bond better afterwards. Okay, so alcohol, it might lead to fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. This is very serious. It can cause physical and cognitive abnormalities. It might delay growth, babies might have facial misproportions. They might have smaller head. And they're likely to have learning difficulties and behavioral problems later in life. So we know sometimes teenagers or kids, they have behavioral problems. They don't behave well. Sometimes we think, oh, it could be how they're raised, the environment, but also it could be genetics. They might be exposed to alcohol when they were in the womb. Also, alcohol is the leading cause of preventable mental retardation in the US. So if you just love alcohol, maybe start to practice not to have as much before you get pregnant. It's a very serious problem. Okay. So other teratogens include different drugs, your stress, depression, flu, mercury, antidepressants, caffeine, or even high water temperature. There's so many. If you're interested, go ahead and look it up. There's a lot of limitations for women, but if you want your offspring to be healthy, you just have to tolerate or get through that 1 year or 9 months of time. So, huh?
They gotta go through 9 months without mercury.
Oh, so sometimes people can expose to mercury by accident. There was this case. I think she's a scientist. She does research in the lab, and she got exposed to that, which is horrible to the body. But yeah, so that's for women. For men, is that be understandable? When you have so many limitations, you're more likely to get irritated. You're more likely to get stressed out. Just be understandable. If you have a partner or you know someone who's going through pregnancy. All right. So let's do a practice question. Bianca is pregnant, but she can't quit smoking. The doctor said smoking is not good at any point during pregnancy, but you must quit right now because you are almost in the what stage of prenatal development, when the greatest harm will be done on the developing baby. Which stage is it? You can't just say it. B. Okay. So embryonic stage, very good. So embryonic stage. That's during when the critical periods are. Okay. Questions about prenatal stage? We good? Okay. Next, we are going to talk about human developments in infants and child. So after they're born. So infants, their senses are less developed than adults. Their visions are blurry. So we have the 20 versus 600 rule, which is babies, they can see 20 feet away as if an adult can see 600 feet away. So they can't really see well. They also prefer faces or contrast, meaning black and white. They can't really see color. They start to develop color senses around 6 months. So how do we know babies' preferences? We can't just ask them like, which one do you prefer, and then they pick one, right? So how do you think that we measure that? Well, how do we know? Yes?
So you can probably track where their eyes are going because they're more likely to look at what they, prefer.
Yes, very good. So we have eye tracking machine. So we look at which one would they look longer. So that's what we assume, because if you're interested in something, you tend to look at it longer for a longer period of time, right? So that's how we think that babies prefer faces than any other random shapes. Okay. Next, hearing. So they are fully developed at birth. And it's influenced by prenatal programming. They respond best to their mom's voice because do you remember when they're in the prenatal stage, when they're still in the womb, they can start to sense sound? That's how they learn their mom's voice, how they remember their mom's voice. So they prefer mom's voice. They also prefer other high female voices. That's why we have baby talk. Do you guys know what baby talk is? Yes? Can someone demonstrate what baby talk is? For those who doesn't know. Anyone?
I would love to hear you do it.
Me? I rarely do it, but I'll try. So it's a very high-pitched voice, and I think women are more likely to do it. It's like, something like that. Sometimes they do that with animals too. And this is cross-culture. So we see this happen in many different cultures. And we think that it's because we, like as human, we just found that people or babies respond to those voices better than like a deep male voice. Right? Okay. Oh, speaking of hearing, I was going to talk about this, but Luis was not here. So you guys can hear his earphones, right? That's super loud. That's not good for the ear. I don't know if he's here today, but I was going to mention that to him. Is he here? Can you see the chat? Oh, he's here? Oh, so that's if your earphone is so loud that people around you can hear, that's going to cause permanent damage to your ear, to your hearing. And it's not reversible. It's very bad. So if you know your friends or you know that you are doing it and you're playing so loud that other people can't hear, don't do it. It's really bad. And we know that hearing is very important because we developed this even before we were born. Okay, next we have smell, taste, and preferences. This is also influenced by the prenatal programming. So babies, they prefer sweet taste. They recognize their mom's milk. And they also prefer flavors similar to mom. So whatever their mom prefers, they like it too. Do you know why they prefer sweet taste? No? I don't know either. I was just curious. Okay, all right. Any questions? Good. Okay. So reflexes. Those are involuntary, unlearned motor skills, and they disappear after 3 to 4 months after they're born. I'm going to show you a short clip. What is this?
Babies are born with a set of reflexes critical for survival in the outside world. Some of these reflexes are so obvious you might not think to look for them, such as the breathing reflex or the eye blink reflex. Rooting is one of the most critical reflexes. By touching 4-week-old Lily's cheek, she'll turn her head and open her mouth in preparation for nursing. Once the baby is in contact with a breast, a bottle, or even a finger, the sucking reflex takes over. Involuntary at first, the neonate will gradually gain control over sucking during the first year. Placing liquid in the mouth will induce the swallowing reflex.
In the first few weeks of life, it takes all the baby's concentration just to control these various uncoordinated reflexes. At this age, feeding Julia can take over an hour. After about 6 weeks, though, Julia will be a pro. There are other reflexes babies are born with that we don't completely understand. In the first 2 months, babies exhibit the stepping reflex. This is probably a precursor to walking. Watch Lily's toes fan out and curl. This is the Babinski reflex, which occurs when the bottom of a baby's foot is stroked.
You can also do like toes curling.
When pressure is placed on the baby's hand, you can see the grasping reflex at work. Lily's grasp is strong enough to support almost her entire body weight. For a few seconds, at least. When startled or dropped, a baby may respond with the Moro reflex. The arms fling outward and inward as if the baby were groping for support. 2-month-old Julia doesn't even need to be awake to demonstrate this reflex.
Researchers suggest that this set of reflexes were critical during an earlier stage of human evolution, perhaps dating from a time when babies had to cling to their mothers. These reflexes will disappear completely after a few months.
Okay, so those are reflexes. Any questions? Good. Great. Let's do a practice question. So you want to buy a baby mobile for your newborn nephew, Jasper. Given what he can see at 1 week old, you should buy which one? You can just say it.
B.
D?
No, B.
Oh, B? Okay.
That's scary.
Yeah, very good. So it should be B. They prefer faces and they prefer contrast. So there's no need to spend so much money on buying those like fancy mobile. They might not even like it. Right? Okay. Lucy is 2 weeks old and growing healthy. Which of the following things does Lucy not do? Once you're ready, you can just say
B.
B. Okay, any other? Okay, very good. So B. And this kind of explains why babies, they prefer mom than dads, right? Because they're more familiar with mom. They spend more time with mom. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Okay, so we are going to talk about cognitive development. So schemas. Those are cognitive framework or concept that helps organize and interpret information. And they form the basic units of knowledge. So we have many different schemas. Let's say pen, I can use pen to write. That's a schema, right? And anything, which pretty much phone, I can use the phone to call people. That's another schema. So those are the basic units of knowledge. Assimilation, that's when you fit new information into existing schema. Accommodation is when you modify existing schemas when they do not work. I'm going to show you an example for each one. Okay. So, when a kid see a dog and people tell the kid, say that's a dog, so this kid learned, okay? If it looks like this, it's a dog. And then this kid sees a different dog, but people tell this kid, say it's still a dog. It has the same feature, it's just smaller. So he learned, okay, that's dog as well. So they're placing new information into existing schema. The existing schema is what a dog looks like. But then they see a new thing that looks like that, but it's not the same. And now they're putting that into the schema. So that's assimilation. Does that make sense? Okay. And then we have accommodation. That's when they see a dog and they learn that's a dog. They see something else that's kind of similar, same features, 4 legs, furry, but they say, okay, that's not a dog, that's a horse. So the kid needs to know, okay, that's not a dog. So they're revising their mental structures to make new schema. Does that make sense? They already had the schema for dog, but now they need to create a different one for horse. So this is the same for us. When we learn something new that doesn't apply to our old schema, we need to create a new schema for that. And accommodation is harder for people to do than assimilation because it requires more cognitive resources. And we're going to talk about this in social psychology chapters, like stereotypes. When you have stereotypes towards a certain group of people, it's harder for you to change that because that will be accommodation. Because you need to make new schemas for that group of people. Does that make sense? Okay, so the application is that kids, they are still developing their brains and cognitive ability. So do not treat them like adults. Sometimes we hear that, just treat them like little adults, right? But you can't do that because their brain is not developed yet. They can't understand the things that you do. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm going to show you this clip, and it just kind of show you what it looks like.
Listen to me. Like I do this all the time, and if I go out at the house or to the door, Matthew has his toys, and then Matthew has all his toys.
Okay, but I have to yell at you guys.
Okay, Linda, listen, Linda, listen.
Okay, what?
Like everything they do at this house, you can't trust everything at Grandma's house.
Okay.
Okay, then what?
Then you're not listening to me.
Then you're not listening to me.
I asked you not to do something.
Linda, but listen to me. Look at, if you do something, if you get that bird thing off, you're gonna break it.
Okay, but I'm letting you know
But
that you cannot.
Linda, lick it.
You're not listening to me.
Linda,
listen to me now. Listen to me now.
Listen to me.
No, you're not listening. I said no cupcakes, and you try to get cupcakes, and you try to ask Grandma.
Linda,
Didn't you?
Linda, lick it. If you do something right out this, if you get close, you can't even get them. You're gonna burn your butt.
What's gonna burn your butt? You and Kevin don't listen, so I have to give both of you guys pop-pows in your butt.
Right. You get the idea, right? So sometimes when you try to reason with little kids, they can't. They just can't. They simply can't understand. So sometimes it might be easier just to tell them, do this, do that. This is good, this is bad, instead of trying to tell them why is it. When they get older, it will be better to reason with them. But when they're so young, they can't understand. There's no need. Does that make sense? Okay, great. All right, any questions? Good? Okay, that's it for today's class. I'll see you on Wednesday.